it individually. I also put a sentence starter that might help you. You don't have to use it, which is the one in the bottom in the gray box, which in the future, we want our district to be a place where, and fill in the blank. So what we want to do in this first part of the activity, I want each of you individually to review the samples of vision statement that are in your handouts. You all have your handouts. So I think Helen emailed them to you. So if you look on page 2 and 4, I've given you some vision statement from the corporate world, so you can see what that looks like. And then on page 3 and 4, a compilation of vision statement from different school districts across the country, not as the model. Just, I think as a good teacher, when we give an assignment, we like to model. So my modeling is by providing you what other school districts have done for their vision. So if you just take a quick look at that, and I put some guiding questions and notes if you want, like what resonate with you, what do you like or dislike? And this is building your background knowledge, because in a few minutes, each of you individually will write your individual vision for the district, okay? And you can also look in your handouts on page 13 and 14. That's part of the notes that we have from the retreat. So everything was captured there if you want to go back. So I'll give you just like about 5 minutes to look over those documents and think about the goal is, and in 5 minutes, I will ask you to spend some quiet time and write your individual vision statement for the district. Okay, by now you probably, sorry. Okay, by now you probably just went through some of those sample statements. So I want you to, again, draft your individual vision statement, and you have models there, and do not spend a lot of time on like wordsmithing, because you're going to have an opportunity to share and combine it in your breakout group. One advice that I would give you is try to make sure that your vision aligns to the most voted items of a profile of a thriving school. And you can see that on your handouts on pages 15 to 17, because we do want to make sure there is an alignment of what we believe a thriving school should look like and the vision that you want to create. So I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to draft your vision statement. I'm doing a process check. As you know, it's very difficult to read the room when we are in a virtual room. If we were in person, it would be easier for me to determine if you need more time. So just let me know by showing a finger if you need 1 more minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes to complete your draft vision. Okay, I see Danielle was 2 minutes. So let's do 2 minutes more. Okay, we're up to our two minute. One of the things that I forgot to mention is that at our last retreat, we did, and I think it was Paula who actually drafted on behalf of the group she was working, a vision statement and a mission statement that some of you like. That's on page 14, just for your information. If you wanted to start it, like, or you like it, or you wanted to build on that. So our next part of this activity will be, we're going to move into groups. And one group will be Tracy, Stephanie, and Danielle. And the three, I've asked the superintendent to also participate by sharing her own vision statement and then mission when we get to that. And then the other group, we know Mary had to drop off, will be Susan, Paula. And each group will have a facilitator and recorder. So Lisa will work with Stephanie's group, and she's going to facilitate a conversation. We're going to have like about 25 minutes, and she will be moving along for you guys to share and come up with a combined vision statement. And Kim will do the same thing for Susan's group. So the first thing, once Helen puts us in the breakout rooms, as soon as you get there, I would recommend, and your facilitator, either Lisa or Kim, will remind you, when you enter the room, put in the chat box your statement so that they can see the 2 or 3 statement, and then begin the conversation that Lisa and Kim will facilitate. So any question before we go into our breakout group? And please, like last time, Glenna said, this is your meeting. It is not my meeting. I'm here to facilitate a conversation, which is harder virtually. But so if I'm going too fast, just let me know. Is that I really want us by 7:30 to have accomplished our outcome. So Helen, we can go into our breakout rooms.
Okay, let me try.
And Lisa, if you can do the same thing.
The only person it allows me to message is Helen.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can give it to her and then she can
Repost it in the chat.
Well, she should hear us.
repost it in the
Well,
chat.
That's weird. Everyone should be able to chat. That-
Yeah,
Yeah, it's blocked for some reason.
yeah.
It's not. It's clicked for everyone to be able to, but I will share it if you send it to me.
So weird.
Yeah, I can only direct message to Helen.
Me too. I think we're there. So Kim and Lisa,
I'm putting it in.
you're sending it into Helen.
I just did.
Okay. Okay, so while Helen is posting that, I think that we use our time very efficiently. I think we use less than 30 minutes. So really great job, team. So Kim, do you want to start by sharing your group and their combined vision statement?
I can do that. I'll read it from the group. It says, within the next 5 years, we will be the school district that others will want to emulate because our students have a solid foundation of knowledge, arts, and skill upon which to build their dreams.
Okay, now for the other group, any clarifying questions or things that resonated with you from that vision statement? Parts that you like, parts that you would change. And you can see it also now in the chat.
That's hard.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your conversation around the within the next 5 years component?
Susan, you want to do that?
And yeah, and we kind of, well, for me, I was drawn to the JF Kennedy, we'll go to the moon in 10 years. And so it's not going to be easy, it's going to be hard, but it's the work that we have to do. And so if we just leave it out there without a framework or timing, I just felt that it just would kind of go on with no kind of ability to check in and say, how are we doing? You know, where do we want to be? And so that was kind of the process that I was thinking through, talking it through with Paula.
And one of the things that Susan did say, I put 5 years. We could do 10 years, but she put 5 years. She started with 5 years. Now, Superintendent, why that question?
I think I'm asking it because I was drawn to the definition of this as a guiding star. And I was actually, it's interesting what we're talking about that we're drawn to, right? Because I loved that one too. Susan, I loved the JFK statement because it was simple and easy to repeat, honestly. And when I read, I was also drawn to the sample vision statements from corporations, more so than I was drawn to the sample vision statements for school districts, because I thought they were simple and I thought they were broad enough that it's sort of this guiding question around, is this something you personally find inspiring? So I think what you guys wrote is personally inspiring, but I just kind of like the ones that are just more generalized. And that's just my perspective. And if there's an interest among the group to have a timeline, I'm open to that. I just was drawn to things that had like less words in them.
Yeah. So let me share a little bit of my perspective, because it's true. You look at the corporate vision statement, they are really timeless, and most of the school district. However, if you're not going to put a specific time frame within the vision statement, you're going to then, when you have your objectives, you really are going to have to specify your time frame, because you do need somewhere a time frame.
Right.
If you don't put it in the vision, then when you have your objectives or your goals,
Yes.
then it has to be
I
really
agree.
specific.
Well, and I just want to acknowledge like Susan's interest here, because I do think I've had multiple conversations with all of you, as well as with many teachers and many principals in our system and parents who I know, where the question is, are we gonna finally do something? And I feel bad saying that, because I do think we have done things. We have done amazing things and we are a good district. But there is a hunger for action that I'm sensing. And I think you all are sensing too. And so I understand the interest in a timeline. I really do.
Can I ask the other board members, as particularly in reference to having a time frame? What is your reaction, Mary?
Yeah, and I am coming in late, I know, to this discussion, but one thing that struck me was, if we say in 5 years, then what does it look like to read that vision next year? I mean, is there a way to say countdown? Do we now say 4 years, 3 years, 2 years? So anyway, that was one thing. I like the thing that Tracy just mentioned about action, and that reminds me of the visits I've taken to schools where they introduce me and say, we're looking forward to hearing what your vision is for the school district. And I really think, honestly, they don't want a vision statement like we're working on now. I think they want more strategy, actual things, like they want to know, are we going to change start dates? Are we going to change SBB? Are we going to do whatever? So personally, I think that sometimes they use the word vision in a way that it's not really meant to be. So, that's just two things that I was thinking of. One, about putting a time frame on it, and also I like the vision. I do want to be a school district that others want to emulate. So for me, that's a good vision. But then I also think we need to educate some of the people that when they see our vision, it may not be what they really want to be hearing. It may not be everything they want to hear. It might be a good thing to hear, but not everything they want to hear.
So Mary, you made two really good points. The first one is the countdown, because so to avoid that, if you want it, you can say by 2030 or whatever year you want to avoid that. The other piece, I totally agree with you. When you go to schools, it's like, and they ask you for your vision, they are actually asking you for what are the strategy, what is the roadmap to get there, that they can see then the work that they do in the classroom reflected in that roadmap. So the way to do that would be, yes, I'm going to share our district vision. If you want a specific roadmap, go to our website and you can click at the strategic management plan, and then they'll be able to see the details there.
Can I just?
Sure, Susan.
Yeah, so, but I do want to tie to what Mary is saying, because I do think, I kind of go back to when John Kerry was running for president, and my children would be in a car and it would say, click, if you want to hear more about me, click on my website, John Kerry for president, And so, I kind of have that in my head with my children saying, oh, parroting, John Kerry for president, blah, 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 www. So I'd like it to be able to say, if when Mary or any of us walk in, we want to be that district, and how are we going to get there? We're focusing on, literacy. We're working on that. We're focusing on STEM or on CTE. We're focusing on that. We're whatever those 3 or 4 things are, that, we don't have to rattle them and tell them to go to www.jeffcoschools.com /strategy, that it is, it's something that Mary is able to say, yep, we were going to be that premier 21st century school district. And the way we're doing it is with this, this, and this.
Yeah.
I
And
don't want to put words in your mouth, Mary, but that's kind
I
of,
think that's a great addition that you made, Susan, because yes, I think part of the strategic plan will have goals. So you might have your 4 or 5 goals. So Mary or any board member or the superintendent or any cabinet member can say, yes, this is our vision, and these is how we're going to go and get them there. Goals, and mention whatever the goals are. I do think that for principals, particularly, for principal would like to go deep into, let me see what does that mean and what does it look like and the timeline, and they can access that wherever you posted your strategic plan.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
absolutely. I'm not anti-website. I just,
No, I know.
I just don't want to be John Kerry
Yes.
with the www thing.
So I don't know if Stephanie or Danielle or Paula, you have any.
Yeah, I think Paula has her hand raised
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
And a
Didn't
little
see that.
virtual hand.
Didn't see
So, I think that if we have the right vision statement, then we can tie our action to it. So when people say, what is your vision? And you can say, that our vision is that in the next 5 years, we are going to be the district that people want to emulate because we have this foundation of knowledge, arts, and skills. And so we are, we're looking at making sure that our students all have reading curriculum that's based in the science of reading so that they get that really solid literacy piece. And this is what we're doing with math. And, we're making sure that all of our schools have full-time AMP. And so we can start talking about those pieces that we've talked about for thriving schools and tie those in together. I just think it's really important if you're going to spend time on a vision and a mission that you're always able to concretely tie those things together and they don't just get written and then pushed to the side to gather dust.
Danielle or Stephanie. If not, we'll go and move to the second vision statement from the other group.
I don't think I have anything outside of what's been said. I mean, I tend to want to err on the side of brevity as well, just because I want for there to be something that, especially with the mission, and I will admit that I struggle with like, okay, wait, no, stop talking. It's that now you're getting into the how, or now we're getting into the mission or more tactical stuff. So, yeah, but I feel like there are a lot of commonalities, and we had a very similar conversation, not necessarily about making the time limit part of it, or but around wanting to have that vision of a premier district or an exceptional district or whatever the words are or district others want to emulate, which we ended up not having when I know we're moving in that direction, but I appreciate that as well, because I do think that sets a good tone for where we want to go, not just for students, but for, some parts of the prestige of the work that we're doing.
So the second, Lisa, you want to read us from your group?
Hey, Jaime, can I just say one
Oh,
thing?
sure, Danielle, sorry.
I was, to me, this feels a lot like what we could build on for the mission statement too, because I feel like there's a lot of, if we want to dream big over here, how do we do it? And I think giving a timeline on the mission statement even makes sense. And then there's like some real details in here on like if kids are the best they can be, or kids can do whatever, students graduate in this way, it's because they had foundations of knowledge. So, I just wanted to say this to me almost seems like the next step, and super awesome too, as that next step. But I also like the brevity of a statement. So
Thank you, Danielle. And this is the beauty of us doing everything together, because we can end up saying, oh my God, that fits better for the mission statement. And that's fine. Lisa, do you want to share your groups?
Yeah, do you want to go mute and I'll unmute?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So okay. A thriving community where all students achieve their biggest dreams.
Okay. Any clarifying questions or comments from the other group, from Susan, Paula, Mary, and Kim? There is, I think it was Stephanie who said it. There's a lot of similarity. One is much more concise, but this whole notion of dreams and their big dreams resonated with both group, and achieving that obviously requires some prerequisite, which is the definition that the Susan's group gave by saying foundation, knowledge, arts, and skills. So our task now is either we combine it or use the best of both and then have a draft of our vision statement. Again, we're not going to wordsmith it. We can do that later because we're trying to capture, both Lisa, Kim, and I, trying to capture the essence. And then Lisa's team can work on maybe wordsmithing if we need to.
Jaime, can I do think it's important for the other group to hear some of, I would say, like, for example, Stephanie, your interest in the word community, and Danielle and Stephanie, both of you felt strongly about this word thrive or thriving. So, which is a little different within the two versions. So I just think it might be helpful for Stephanie and Danielle to talk about their interest in some of the specific words that landed in our version.
Yeah. And that would be great for either one of you. I will say that Susan in our group did mention the word community. She said she was trying to get outcomes community, word community. So there's also that similarity. So I don't know, Danielle, you want to share the thinking, or Stephanie?
Yeah, I think, one of the conversations that we had is not necessarily going to the how, but that, our interest is student-centered, which I think both of these vision statements are, and that what we want are thriving school communities that are able to help support students as they're going on to achieve their biggest dreams. So we played around quite a bit with the order of words and trying to find the right fit in terms of, how to articulate that in a way that was pretty to the point and short. And so by putting it in the front, a thriving community, there's sort of layers of what that can mean. So that can mean the school community, the district as a community, Jeffco as a community. I mean, I think it works on so many levels. But that it was kind of it was an important, for I think the conversation we had, it was an important element to be in there. One, because it's a little bit of the culture of Jeffco that already exists, but also that we can do really good work to make that a thriving community. And I'm not sure that would be identified as such right now in terms of any of those layers, and that's the work that ties in really closely with the Jeffco Thrives 2025. So there's also sort of that word consistency and alignment. So Danielle, I don't know if I missed something in there.
No, I thought that was really good. We really loved the one that Paula scribed last time, and kind of referenced back to that. Yeah, and I just think that, yeah, all the things, yes.
So to the other group, your reaction on including in the final draft that clause or phrase of a thriving community.
Go ahead, Susan.
I think you could say we are a school community, or a, how do you put that? How do you blend them? I like the thriving because that was what we had before of our group. Hoorah! But
what if, Susan, and the group, it would say within the next year, we will be a thriving community that others will want to emulate?
I think we need to put school in there somewhere.
The problem is if you put school community, and then you're talking about a local community for a school, not for the
Or
school district.
then a district?
Yeah.
What if you said a thriving community of schools?
Uh,
So it's sort of all of our, I mean, we define our community in a large way based on what schools are anchored there.
You're taking notes of this. Okay.
Yeah, I guess the challenge of community of schools is that it goes back once again to all these little schools and not an overall district.
Yeah.
So
So you
I,
think it keeps it too much a district of schools, not a school district?
yeah, so I'm happy to wordsmith that because I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying about
Mhm.
that because it is important, but I think we have been struggling for the past 15 years or more because of our silos.
Yeah.
And
I hear that.
What if we called it a thriving educational community?
Or district.
Or just district,
A
thriving
thriving district.
district.
Just had one thought on that, like, also we want to, and I think we've talked a lot about like innovative partnerships with private sector and government. And in some ways I want to not bound our community to call it school in a way, because unless that's what we mean, because in some ways I think having a thriving community that extends the boundaries of what we typically think of as schools could
yeah, but
help.
I don't think we have competency in that.
Oh, right, but this is our vision.
Right, but as a school district, I would see that as a, well,
Strategy.
I don't know how that, as a vision for a school district, that we could tie all of that together. I hear where you're wanting to go, and I get that because we need partnerships and we need relationships with other organizations across, Jeffco and Denver and the state, et cetera. I'm just, what's within our ability, I guess is my question as a district.
Lisa?
Yeah, so one thought is just to remember, I know we're looking at it like this now, but something that we could remember is that it will always say Jeffco Public Schools, a thriving community. Do you know what I mean? So it will always be with Jeffco Public Schools, so when we're talking about a community, I think that link will always be there. I just wanted to say that.
Mhm.
So let me see if I want to paraphrase what I heard you say. So you can say that we keep the time frame within the next 5 years, Jeffco Public School, a thriving community that others will want to emulate. Is that what you were saying, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm saying that like a thriving community where all students achieve their biggest dreams, it would always have Jeffco at the front. Jeffco Public
Yeah.
Schools,
Will be.
Vision
Yeah.
is a thriving
Yeah.
community, that we're a thriving community.
Okay,
So
Okay.
it makes it so it's bound within
yes.
the school district context. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing right now, so we can move when we're not going to go to wordsmithing, there is this consensus, I think, of having this thriving community bounded by Jeffco public schools, that phrase to be part of the vision statement. Is that a fair assessment? Okay, good. See everybody nodding. Okay, perfect. So now let's move to the second part. Actually, let's do everybody wants a time frame? Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or we put a 2030, whatever it is.
I personally don't think a time frame goes in the vision. I think it goes in the how, personally.
And I would say that as well, because it would sound almost like, and yeah, after 5 years, we're done.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
yeah, I like putting it in maybe the mission or something else. But I like the idea of it. We'll never do it unless we put a time frame on it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree with that part. I mean, I'm a little bit ambivalent about it, where it goes, but
Yeah,
I'm not ambivalent. We need really time bound kind of priorities and the management plan, like the strategic management plan, stuff like that, that allows our community to have a set of expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
so what I would recommend is that you can put that in the goals. I don't even know if you would put it in the mission, because then like that, if it's within 5 years, whoever's the board and the superintendent, you don't have to, if they want, they don't have to change the vision and the mission, because it might still be the same because it's timeless. You want to continue doing that, but what I'm getting is that we need to capture somewhere a time frame so that we can hold the organization and everybody accountable. Is that, everybody agrees with that, right? Okay. So now, do you want to continue that Jeffco Public School, a thriving community that others will want to emulate because our students will have a solid foundation? Do you want that phrase that follows? Or do you want to make it shorter?
Can our mission statement incorporate the detail that Paula raised with, we want these things?
Yeah.
And within, we're working to get there within X time.
Yeah. So
Or yeah.
yeah. So the answer is yes. If you remember that Canadian that I quoted, so the vision will give you the direction. The mission gives you the focus. So you can add those into the mission because that will provide greater focus of how that means.
So the focus of arts, Paula, and what were the other three that you had? I wrote it down, didn't I?
Knowledge, arts, and skills.
Yeah, that would be incorporated then in the mission because that's more specific.
Yeah, you could do that.
It's sort of the how.
Yeah, showed up for the how.
I mean, my preference just personally is to have a vision statement that is like unforgettable. I mean, that's really like, it's almost difficult to get out of your head because it's so like clear to the point. And then it will almost beg, and then how do you do that? And you're like, well, and then we rattle that off. Because I agree. I mean, obviously, like the substance of that has to be articulated in this process, or else it's just sort of like fluffy words. But for in terms of like the vision, like where are we going? I don't know. I prefer brevity. But.
Okay. So we go with Danielle, yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking it's funny splitting us into groups. We kind of like get attached to the one we came with, I think. So I'm still like, I really like the one we came with, so, but the truth is what I really love about the other one is I feel like we could just tweak it maybe here and there a little bit and it would be a great mission statement, and maybe even with a little more detail. Like I really like the other statement and I really still like the one that we came up with for a vision. So
you know what, can I jump in? Because I think it's interesting. Some of what is in the other group's draft vision statement was actually part of our conversation. So for example, this notion of being a school district that others want to emulate. Stephanie at one point in one of her drafts had a world-class district. And we talked about how we've talked about from going from good to great to extraordinary. And I've talked about being a national model, nationally recognized. So this is all in the same vein, right? And when we had that conversation, we were trying to fit it into our vision because we do think it's important. And we sort of landed in this place of like, let's talk about that again when we come back to do mission. So it's sort of like that was common, but we just felt like it was maybe better placed in the mission based on the conversation we had separate from you all. And then I just want to say one other thing. I mean, I love and believe in knowledge, arts, and skills. I am just a little worried that if we put the word arts in there, we're going to have to add physical health or something. Because I think PE teachers in particular are going to react to the word arts.
So that's a good point.
I just want to make that statement.
That's a
and I-
good point, and we did talk about that. Remember,
Oh, okay.
I asked that same question to the group, and I said, if you highlight art, are you missing others like technology or PE, or are you embedding those into knowledge? And I think, Paula, correct me if I'm wrong, like all those were within the category of knowledge, and the arts was more from the creative side, which could be performing arts, or could be a great writer too, in terms of creative. But Paula, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I think like, when you look at PE, that's a combination actually of knowledge and skills. That what you need to do to stay healthy, and you have the skills that you learn in sports. And those are, they're an interesting variety of skills that you get from that. Some of that is physical, some of that is teamwork. So I think that it could be included, but I also understand what you're saying, Tracy, in that PE teachers aren't necessarily going to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So I can see that.
So if I can just, because I want two quick things. One is, if it's possible, if we are moving in the direction of beginning to think about mission, or the transitioning from vision, I don't know if we are yet.
Yeah.
I would request though that we take a quick break, 5:55, just for about 15 minutes, and then come back and refresh, because I think this is a good conversation that to lead into mission, but I also want to make sure we have our full board participating. So
yeah, so pretty good. We have 1 minute. I'm going to summarize where we are right now. It seems like the group is gravitating to something like this. It could be wordsmith later. Jeffco Public Schools, a thriving community that others will want to emulate, where all students achieve their biggest dreams. Is that mostly where we are?
I would like to have something in there about the fact that we're laying the foundation for those dreams.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be specific about what those pieces are, but that, that this is where they get the foundation that they build those dreams
Okay.
on.
So before we go to this break, let me ask Lisa. Lisa, do you feel you and your team have enough information to end up wordsmithing the vision?
Yes.
Or should we continue this conversation? Or should we continue for a couple more minutes when we come back from break?
Yeah, no,
Stay in your spot, Lisa. We can see you.
Yes.
I'm worried you can't hear me, and I don't want there to be like
Gotcha.
a reverb there. So yes, I think we have enough. I think that the one piece on the emulation piece, I really love that
Yeah.
piece, but I also feel like it's better when you show that rather than tell it. Like if we can show that we're the district to emulate, but I want to play around with that a little bit more. But I like these other pieces, the foundation to build on, those kinds of things. So yeah, I think we have really good information.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take the break until 6:10, as we said, 6:10, and then we'll start with 2 or 3 more minutes, just in case during the break you have any great ahas that you wanted to share regarding the vision.
great. That sounds like a good plan. Thanks so much for everyone's flexibility.
Sure.
See you guys in 15.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so welcome back. I said I would give you 2 or 3 minutes to finish this part of the agenda. So what I want to direct you is to page 5 of your handouts. On page 5, you will have a rubric from actually Jim Collins that I adapted on 4 good rubrics. So before we go and have a conversation, take a look at those questions to see if we're getting close with the statements that we were discussing before the break. Okay, any reactions in terms of those questions from the rubric, in terms of the statement? Does it lead you to want to make some edit or revision so that Lisa's aware for her team? Yes, Susan. Oh,
Paula had her hand up
oh,
first.
sorry, I didn't see. Paula?
It does sort of eliminate the 5-year thing because it talks about it being true for like the next 100 years.
Yeah, that's true. Even though you can still say after 5 years, you can still keep that same statement without the time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, the rest.
Yeah. Susan?
I guess I keep going back to, thinking about, would any of our employees, staff be able to say this and know what we mean?
Mhm.
Number one, so that it's a guiding force.
Mhm.
So, if I say this statement, it helps me with my decision-making process. If I say this statement, it helps me know how I'm supposed to behave or respond to this parent or to this child's needs or to another student that I have a relationship with. So whatever is wordsmith, Lisa and Jaime and Tracy, how we put it together, to me, it has to roll off my tongue, like kind of what Stephanie was saying before, like da, 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 da. And it has to mean something that helps guide us.
Yeah. So on that note, like the last item on the rubric, which like when telling your children or other loved ones what you do for a living, talking in terms of employee. So I can actually see like a bus driver saying, what do I do for a living? I help students achieve their biggest dream. And how do I do that? I drive them to the place that's going to give them the foundation and the skills. So in that sense, that piece, I can see that adapting to many of our employee groups.
Right. I just, it's also going back to is it authentic?
Yeah.
That, people will believe what we're saying or what we mean and understand what we mean.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of going back, and I don't know if it's Honda, Toyota, but it was their, pursuit of perfection, knowing that at any point in time, if I was, in the sales force, or if I was building that car, I could stop something for the moment and fix it or make sure it was at a standard that was Honda. I was thinking like of Tiffany jewelry, timeless. I don't know if that's their vision or if that's their statement or not, but I just think, yeah, when you see Tiffany, it's timeless. So I like what we have. I'm just, is it something that is easy for people to remember? That if you asked a teacher, or if you asked your bus driver, or if you asked the para who's helping with an IEP, that they would have that in their head and know how to apply it. Like you said, I'm driving them to school for their biggest dreams. So that's just a test on me.
Okay, perfect.
I think just one thing, because I agree with you, Susan, and one of my sort of personal goals with all of this, and then as it connects with the strategic plan and the strategic management sort of plan that's being laid out, is there is something about kind of the repetition of words that it may not have a definition in the vision, but it sure as heck has to have a definition in the strategic plan. So for example, saying, a thriving whatever, right? Like having this consistency of language across some of these kind of big, bold, formative statements, or foundational statements, I should say, that there is I think it's strategic to, even if it's not defined in the vision, to have it connect in some of those terms to what will be defined as we move forward with the strategic plan, with the mission statement, which is a little bit more of the how. So like, would people know, would I know what someone was saying if they said, this is a district where a thriving district, but whatever, where children, all students can reach their biggest dreams? I would probably next say, what does that mean? And then you'd say, great, it means this, this, and this. But I'm hopeful that we can create those synergies through that kind of say it, define it, live it, and be accountable to it. That's my hope, at least. So I'm sort of like agreeing with you, and I have this aspirational vision of how we can create some consistency in how we talk about this, so that it does start resonating and meaning something, because we actually start doing it and holding ourselves accountable to it. So that would be my very long response to that.
Good, that's helpful, and it's helpful that we are recording it so that we can go back to it. Paula, Mary, or Danielle, any comments that you want to make sure that we keep in mind? Or are you comfortable with the direction? Seems like, okay, seems like that's a yes. The only thing I will say, I know, Paula, you mentioned the word foundation was really important to you. One of the things that perhaps the entire group wants to think, unfortunately, foundation in education is seen like the base or the basic. So sometimes it's synonymous, like we're going to give them just the basic skill because that's the foundation they need. I know that's not what you're referring to, but just in case it doesn't end up in the statement, but we get, I think, the essence of what you mean.
Right. I think, if you're talking about the foundation of someone's dream, if you only give them the basics and nothing else, they're never going to get to that.
That's true.
So if we're talking about the foundation of a dream, I think we're implying that it is.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. Thank you. So now we're going to move to the mission statement, developing our mission statement. And instead of going into breakout groups, I think we did this very quickly. We're going to do it as the entire group here. So again, if you look at the slide that I'm sharing the criteria for effective mission statement. Like, first, is there alignment to the vision? That's like the first number one thing. Like, in 10 years or whatever years, would you be able to tell if you have achieved your mission? That goes back to Susan's earlier point in terms of a time. And this just like, would you be able to say, wow, it will be really fantastic to make all this happen? And will people easily understand it?
And does it address the current state of the district, but at the same time, capture the preferred state or the preferred future for the district and the students? So those are things to keep in mind. And then here are some guiding questions that you also have to give you to you in your pre-reading. Is like, what do we hope to accomplish as an organization? What will our graduates look like? What are the expectations of the students, parents, and the community? And how do our students compare with others elsewhere? So those are just some guiding questions. So right now, what I want you to do is, again, to review the sample of mission statement. And I only gave you mission statements for school district, and you have them on page 6 of your handout. And you can take notes in terms of what resonate with you. And then you can review the vision and mission notes from the retreat, pages 13 and 14, and use all that as a guide for you individually to draft your mission statement. Once you do that, I think that Helen was able to fix, and I think now we can post. Once you finish yours, just post it in the chat box, okay? So we'll give you like 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, does anybody need more time? Let's see. Okay, see, Paula and Stephanie have theirs already.
Oh, am I supposed to be typing?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, there we go. Oh,
No, we only have we had to go to call Mary. So we have Paula, and we have Stephanie and Susan and Danielle. We're missing Tracy and Mary.
so I did last time. I was trying to get.
What's yours, Tracy?
I'm working on
Oh. I'm assuming you probably already read your colleagues, which is good. So we have all of them except for Mary, because she said she had to take a phone call. So let's start with Paula. You want to read yours? And the rest of us, what you're doing is thinking about, yes, that's the mission statement, or this is a component of this statement that I want to keep.
Jeffco provides an environment in which students are challenged to reach their full potential intellectually, creatively, physically, and vocationally.
Okay, good. Stephanie, which I think is quite similar to Paula, but Stephanie?
Sure. Jeffco Public Schools educates students to be successful members of their community through well-rounded and rigorous educational experiences.
Okay. Danielle?
It looks like she may have stepped away for a second.
So I'll read it. We are a world-class district. We're an interconnected community of partners support staff and students to acquire knowledge, skills, and values for professional and social success. Susan?
Jeffco Public Schools provides a comprehensive foundation that allows graduates to thrive in a global community.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Tracy?
Our mission is to come together as a community to provide a world-class education that prepares all students for a bright and successful future.
Okay, so what commonalities did you see among the 5 statements? I mean, I saw one, not on all of them, but this whole notion of world-class or global community.
I think there's also some, I mean, the words may be different, but
Yeah.
there's also an emphasis around, like in Paula's, that the sort of whole child, all aspects of how we want to develop, you know, good humans to graduate from our I was about to say colleges, wrong frame, high schools. That, yeah, and the foundation for allowing students to thrive.
One question for you, Paula. Is there any reason why you didn't include emotionally?
No, that was not intentional.
Okay. Any other comments? What do you notice from the 5 statements that we have?
I think there's not in all of them, but in a lot of them, there's an implication that there should be rigor, or that it should be challenging, or, you know, a sense of high standards or striving.
Yeah, there's that notion. There's also the notion of like the well-rounded too, in terms of 5, like well-rounded in Stephanie, and yours, Paula, means everything you have after the colon. And then with Danielle, with the knowledge, skills, and values, and with Susan, this comprehensive foundation. So if I were to ask you, which of these statements you gravitate the most, so that we can start from there and use the others to make it even better?
I think that Stephanie's use of the term well-rounded is less cumbersome than my rather extensive list. So I think that that sort of encompasses that. And the use of the word rigorous implies, like I said, that thing that we kind of all have of high standards.
I also like, I mean, this is sort of, if we're combining things, I'm not suggesting one to start with, but I do think if you were to combine parts of Susan's and Tracy's together, particularly that end part, but that, you know, prepares all students for a bright and successful future in a global community, that it gets to some of the more, I mean, I think the bright and successful future is a little bit more sort of, it's a happier tone for some reason. I don't know, like it kind of makes you, it's a little uplifting. And I really do appreciate the focus on, these are students that are going to be navigating a much more sort of connected global world. So those pieces I like as well.
I like what you just did, Stephanie, in connecting the last 2 phrases of Susan and Tracy, because I agree with you. I really, when I saw the phrase global community, immediately I said, wait a minute, they're preparing students not only to compete in Jeffco, not only to compete in Colorado, not only to compete in the US, but in the global community, which is so essential. And I do too agree with you with this, like bright and successful, like are very joyful terms.
So I like the word rigorous in Stephanie's statement, and I like this word challenged in Paula's, because I think that speaks to what Paula was saying around this theme of rigor. And we talked about that at the last retreat, that we want high expectations, you know? So I like those words. I have this interest, so I just want to share with you that I put in here, come together as a community. Because I really feel like if we're going to accomplish the vision conversation that we've had and some of the goals that we're going to set, it is going to take an effort for our community to be less divided. We're never going to have everybody agreeing on everything, nor should we. But we're going to have conversations with people where they can talk to one another, and I think come together more than they have in the last decade. So I have an interest in that. And I feel like it's also represented a little bit in Danielle's, where she talks about like interconnectedness.
Yeah. Stephanie just posted that.
Okay.
Well, and
Yeah.
I like the community of partners. You know, that idea that people understand that we are partners in this together. We're not enemies.
Yeah, I think what Paula, you said of defining community as Danielle did, community of partner, might be a good way, because sometimes people will say, oh, the community, they're just referring to the school district. But when you say a community of partners, what you're doing is also a call to action, that this goes beyond the school district. We need partners in community-based organization, the business, religious leaders, helping us shape this.
I appreciate that framing quite a bit. I like that.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Paula, it was the irony in that you said you liked well-rounded was, I was like, I really like Paula's list. And I like the addition of, I can't remember what you said, Jaime, but so
Emotional.
Emotionally, or as well. I kind of liked, because it's that whole child view, you know, that is kind of encumbered in that. And I do like that. I do, the term global communities really grow to me too, because I think it also not just implies like we're getting them ready for the global, you know, market or whatever, but also usually that term implies there's some like, I don't know what it is, but like awareness or empathy of like the global
Humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of like that, because it not only implies like their future in that, but also that we're building kids who are thinking about others with empathy and in that kind of systemic way.
So
I just put something in
you
there.
put something.
I can't help myself because I'm an English language arts person.
Good. So is Paula. You might have competition.
I'm sure I will. I had to write my thinking down.
To be a community.
I like that, Tracy.
And Lisa, I think, is planning to do some wordsmithing based on the conversations and the drafts and all that, but that's just another iteration that we could give to her for food for thought.
So I know you used the word thriving, but bright and successful, which was your original words, I think I reacted like Stephanie did. Those two words seem easy to understand, and like a little bit of joyful.
Inspirational.
Yeah, inspirational. Now the question on that one, do we need the word rigorous if you put a world-class education? Like I like when, and I'm one who you will always as an educator hear me use the word rigorous and rigor a lot. But for the larger community, like the way that Paula, you describe it by the word challenge, students are going to be challenged, and captures it in a much more simple lay way than rigorous.
I agree.
That's a hard one, because I mean, if you say it's a world-class education, the assumption is that it is rigorous, right? Because it's world-class and that's what we would need. I'm like, I don't know why I'm hesitant to let that word go because I think there's something intentional about it,
Which one, rigorous?
rigorous. I mean, like, I'm not ready to like step in traffic for it,
Okay.
but I don't know.
I agree. It has been, candidly, I think, when we listen to the it's not the TEL survey, is it with the children? Which is the one where you hear the children
Make your voice heard.
make your voice heard? So many of the comments from children were, I don't feel
Challenge. I feel bored.
challenged.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't feel like I'm being,
Yeah.
my brain is being honored. And I also think that to me holds a bar for our children, that they're calling out for us for that rigor.
Yeah.
Like, feed me, and of course we want a world-class education, but we want our kids to be able to compete with the kids from New Jersey who go to private school, and kids that go to, schools in Europe, and go to schools in Japan, and go to schools in China. I mean, it is a very competitive world.
Yeah, the
And-
advantage, oh, sorry.
And
The
and so I do think that rigor
Yeah,
does raise that
Yeah.
challenge, Stephanie. So I hear you. I don't want to necessarily give it away either, because our kids are going to compete
Yeah.
significantly in the 21st century. Artificial intelligence, things that are changing dramatically, pathways are going to have to be, stepped up, et cetera. And so how do we, it has a sense of urgency to me.
no, I would agree. And when I made the comment was I was referring more to the community at large. Actually, part of me likes having rigorous there for the internal community, because it's easier when you go to a school and say, show me the rigor that you're providing our student, like our mission statement. Okay. So that helps. Lisa?
Yeah, I can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I personally hate the word rigor just because I don't think it relates to people
Yeah.
outside of the education
That's what
space.
Mhm.
But this idea of challenging students, and I mean, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the next steps of the strategic plan and the 4 like overarching areas, and our learners, our future. There will be an opportunity statement under there, and I think that the rigor component is really critical in there, and how we talk about. But getting the point across, I think, is really important. It's just the word.
Yeah.
And, as we were kind of talking about on the break, as we go back and look at this vision, mission and values work, one of the things we have to look at is how does this translate in other languages? How it's going to be communicated to all of our stakeholders. How will students receive it? And that's, part of the feedback loop we're going to go into to get feedback on things. But I think the idea of students being challenged is really important.
Yeah.
Paula has had her virtual hand up for.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Paula.
And also, I just want to throw this out there. I can tell you that a lot of teachers are getting allergic to the word rigor.
Yeah.
And it's not that they do not want to challenge students or they don't want high standards. It's again, how that word has been used politically in schools that teachers tend to push back against. So just a heads up on that one.
Okay. So what I've heard so far is that we're gravitating. There might be some wordsmithing to do, but we're gravitating to something like our mission is to be a community of partners who provide a challenging or rigorous world-class education that prepares all students for a bright and successful future within the global community.
And I apologize, I don't know where the hands up thing is this time. I don't see it.
Don't worry.
And also apologizing for being in and out. And I guess mostly I'm just acting as critic instead of generator of ideas here. But a couple of things that just came to my mind. I really like it saying our mission is, because I'm still struggling. What's a vision? What's a mission? What's next? And so for me, when you say our mission is, That's going to help me. Second thing is world-class. I personally, when I think of the world and the education throughout the world, if you take the whole world, it's not all that great. There are a lot of countries that are struggling. And, I think of the world leaders as really a handful in education. So maybe that's just me, but if you have 200 and some countries. So I like the word rigorous. I like something that brings us into a higher class of competition, if you will, or whatever. And that means I like challenging, I like rigorous, I like all those things. And I understand that rigorous might not play well with certain people, but I always want to come back to, we are talking about an educational district. So I like bringing the community in and being partners and all that stuff, but I do like it when we can say, our specifics, our words are wrapped around educational concepts. So that's my 2 cents.
Great comments. Thank you, Mary. The only thing I would say to that is, I think when we use in education, the phrase world-class education means a high quality education that would allow a student to compete in any part of the world. Because it's not necessarily the compilation of all the type of education that is offered around the world, because most don't do a good job. Which was here.
I would just read it as like who's doing the best, who's doing like just really incredible,
Yes.
innovative work in a global context. That's the world class we want to be, So I don't think, to me, I don't read it as like going to the bottom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul, I couldn't hear you. What?
Sorry, a quick Google search says world-class means best in the world.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie, I saw your note about she wouldn't use the word community
Yeah,
twice.
yeah.
That's just nitpicking. Sorry. I know that's like I bet.
It's fair.
Yeah. But I think we all gravitated to more or less the way I summarized, said we need to do some wordsmithing. But I also think, like, if I'm a student, with this mission, I could demand from my teacher and say, you know what? You're not providing me with a rigorous and world-class education that is going to prepare me to have a bright future wherever I want to live. It allows that part of the accountability.
As long as you have a passport.
As long as you have a passport. But,
Right. You can't just go work in Portugal if you don't have the passport.
okay, so now that we're there, obviously there'll be some wordsmithing. Why don't you go to page 7 of your handout, and let's go over the rubric. First, I think it connects to the vision, but the second question for the mission, in 10 years, would you be able to tell if you have achieved your mission, as I described it earlier? Yes, Susan?
I guess it would really depend on, have we fostered great leaders? Have we that, are global, that are in places that are influencing things for the better for our communities and for our country and for the global community? Do we have the scientists? Did we build did we help the engineers? Did we, provide the education for children to become problem solvers and truly solve complex problems?
Yeah.
Do we have those leaders coming from Jeffco, and they're not just staying, respectfully, they're not just staying in Jeffco, they're going on truly to be global leaders.
Yeah.
And so I guess that would be, were we effective? Did we build that foundation? Did we build the pipeline? Did people look at Jeffco and say, hey, how do we do that for our kids?
Yeah, Susan, I thought you were going to say well, can we measure it? Because that's what I think.
We should be able to measure it, right? I mean, we should be able to say, hey, 85% of our children are on grade level, literacy and numeric and numeracy and science, and they're moving through that system. We should be able to see that so that when they leave, they go on to do great things. We
Yeah.
shouldn't just have 5 kids competing for MIT. We should have every school having kids apply to MIT. We shouldn't just have some children applying to Oxford. We should have a ton of kids applying to Oxford. We shouldn't have just some kids going CTE for solving, this construction problem and challenge. We should have a lot of kids doing that. And so right now we're not in that space, right? So I think we can measure, Danielle. I think we can see along the way how we're preparing those children. I think we do have to measure.
Yes, I guess what I was going to say is for that question, like in 10 years, do we know if we got there? We'd have to know how so Susan just gave some examples also of like how we measure how, I think I mentioned this in our retreat, like at the university, we look at like how marketable our students are, like how many of them are getting jobs. And, when a UCD candidate, comes up before them, are they going to be like, yeah, here's a School of Public Affairs student, let's get them in for an interview. So there's something about being able to understand our reputation in the community and then globally is pretty hard. But so like in how we think of what our success is, like how do we even widen that way of understanding? So in 10 years, like how do we know what our reach has been? And so I like all those examples, even like that, like college admissions or even submissions, is pretty impressive. So I think we could figure it out, but we have to expand our innovation around measurement, I think, or what that means.
One thing that I do appreciate about this mission statement, and I can't speak necessarily to the how, there are a lot of very smart people that can, so is that, one of the conversations I feel like that has come up several times from the board table over the last couple of years is around, we celebrate, excuse me, some of the benchmarks that Jeffco, exceeds the state, for example, in reaching. And when we've had this conversation around, are those the right benchmarks? Like, is that what we're aspiring to be, is a couple points above the state? And I'm not trying to disrespect, statewide performance, but I think where this mission statement to me is leading to a place where we get to reevaluate and make a claim around, this is how, these are the standards and measurements that we're going to choose for our students that are going to be outside of the traditional context of the state standard for CMAS or the state standard for graduation or the state standard or whatever it is. And that we get to innovate in that space to make it something that's meaningful. How do we know if we have students who can compete in a global, be successful in a global context? I don't know, but boy, am I interested in having that conversation. Yeah, absolutely. So to me, that is a really, to me, that means that it's getting close to the mark.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm thinking of is, first, I like what Susan said, recreating the global leaders. Where are they? But one of the things that I would encourage you to focus is, regardless of whether they become global leaders, when they graduate from your school district, did they have all the skills and knowledge to be global leader, whether they choose for that or have or not? But at that last point, and what could lead, and I think I've heard the superintendent say this, you can create a profile of what is the Jeffco graduate, and then work backwards, as Susan was saying. So if that's the Jeffco graduate, when they graduate from elementary, are they on track to be that? When they graduate from middle school, are they on track to be that? So that it is a life full of choices and not a forced choice. I can be whatever I can because it really prepared me and gave me the skills to choose whatever path I wanted for my life.
Which then holds our schools accountable.
Yes.
Because if they know that this is the end game.
Yes.
Kind of what Danielle was saying, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Danielle, so correct me if I say, but that when they leave Jeffco and somebody interviews them or wants that, they're like, I want that graduate, be them CTE, be them college, be them military, be them the best baker that they can be, culinary expert. I don't really care what it is, but it's that they are able to be a valuable player in my organization or in wherever I'm going with my company or whatever right away, that they've got the skills. And I don't know if that's exactly what Danielle was going for, but
exactly, Susan. And I hear a lot of people say Jeffco used to be like the best district, is like excellence, is a word that comes with it. And I think that's what you described is like, people are like, okay, here's all our applicants. Oh, there's a Jeffco grad. Let's, ooh, that's a special grad, like, I think that's what we want to get back to, or what you described exactly.
Yeah, which was interesting in the last conversation that both of you had, your comments, Susan and Paula, and I'm looking at Kim because that's the head of instruction. I mean, this, I can already see creating a profile of the type of teaching and learning that we want to see in our schools that develops this mission. And something that I don't want to see in our schools in terms of teaching and learning, because it will not help. So I think it does help guide the schools. Okay.
I just want to say, I think it also helps guide the district.
Yeah.
In support of schools getting the things done that they need to get done to achieve this type of a mission. So I think I like it. I think we're on the right track.
I think so too, and it seems like all of you also feel the same way. Obviously, there will be some wordsmithing, but I think we capture the essence, and Lisa has a lot to play with her team. So now let's go to the last part of our agenda before we turn it to Lisa for the strategic plan. It is now developing the values, and we're going to do this. We're going to do this the same way, except that I'm not going to ask you to make a list of your values. We're going to brainstorm together as a group. And maybe Lisa and Kim, can you type in the chat box some of the values that we're going to be enlisting? And let me just share it share my screen again to provide you with some guidance. So obviously, your values are those expectations that you have for your district and your employees. So they're the foundation for the decisions that you as a board will make and how you expect the employees to behave and perform. And without them, it can be difficult to establish and communicate a culture. So that's what we want to get. And here are some criteria for effective value statement. They should reflect what the district stands for. Describe the behaviors that we value over all else. Describe how will we conduct our activity to achieve our mission and vision. And describe how we treat members of our own organization and the community at large. I also gave you some guiding questions like, what do you believe are the values of a high-performing school district? What behaviors do we want stakeholder to model? But also, having been in many of these exercises, the question that really resonated with me is the last one. What are the values of your ideal team or your ideal employee? And if you think about that, that would help you say, these are the values that we want for the entire organization. And here, I'm just going to leave this here. This is just not an exhaustive list, but some of the values of sample values. And today, what we want is to narrow to whatever 5, 6, or 7 you want, and we might not have a definition. I will encourage you to have a definition like you see on page 8. There's some value statement that have the value and then what it means. So we might not get to define each value, but through our discussion, we will give the information for Lisa and the team to provide us with the definition. Okay, is that clear? Okay. So now, why don't we start thinking about what are the values that you think this organization should abide by?
Just to clarify, are we just sort of popcorning around
Yes.
here to talk? Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to frame this as a value, but I have heard it quite frequently from the board, and I think this should be one. But somehow that we center students in every decision we make, like that students are centered in our decision making. And I don't know how that translates to value, but I think it's important. I want to have it there.
Yes, student center could be the value, and then we have descriptors of what that means, which is, if it is truly a value, you can ask, as a board, you can ask the administration, with this contract or this decision, how will it benefit our students?
So I saw that Susan has her hand up.
So I'm just learning how to use these little things as opposed to interrupting people. But when I sat on the Montessori Peaks Academy charter school board, we had a number of things taking place while I was there that was disruptive. And we were trying to settle. And one of the things that we did, and I don't think it's necessary to do, but it does echo the student-centered, was that at every single board meeting, when all this noise was taking place and things were moving along, we put a little chair in the center of our meeting, because oftentimes the adult issues got in the way of the work that we really needed to be focusing on for children. And so adult problems became bigger than the children focus. And so I want to just echo Stephanie's point, and that's always been, focus for me because of all of that I went through, as well as other things with the work I did within the district as a volunteer. But really, that is critical. And I don't know how we have little pictures of children on our table all the time. I don't know how that works, but I echo that.
That's a really great point. Amazon actually, in their meetings, in their cabinet meeting, they have an empty chair which represents the customer.
Yeah.
For the same reason that you talk, is like a friendly, it's a symbolism, but a friendly reminder. It's about students. It reminds me, and I can share with you at a later time, this great fable from an African tribe. It's called "And How Are the Children?"
Right.
And, and it's like, just imagine if every press conference that every elected official or every meeting that would begin or end, and how are the children in Jeffco?
Right.
Answering that question.
That should be our hashtag. Yeah.
Susan, can you talk a little bit about your chat comment around integrity? So it's
sure. Yeah. So I think integrity covers a lot of these other values. So I think integrity covers honesty. I think it covers, transparency. I think it covers credibility. I think it covers diversity, allowing for other voices. And I'm trying to see if I can get over to the left column because my little chat box. But integrity to me covers, I could probably say 6 or 7 of these other values. Because what does that mean? Integrity is honesty. Integrity is transparency. Integrity is, excellence, et cetera. My dog just came in to kind of interrupt me. So that's all I'm saying is some of these words can be comprehensive in terms of like loyalty. That's trust too, right? I trust you. You're loyal. I trust you. That's all I'm, how do we kind of narrow down the words, right? Because isn't that what you were saying, Jaime, that we need to be having fewer words, not a whole litany of them. So can we capture some of these words that will be more comprehensive?
But I would, yes, capture the words, like put them in bold, similar to on page 8, and then have a couple of descriptors. So like a word integrity, for some people, it might not be transparency or credibility. So if you put that, those are like the indicators. So I would encourage you to do that. So right now we have the student center or focus on children and the integrity. I'm going to share one that I've heard since I've been here from both the administration and from previous board member and from current board member. And it's this whole notion of accountability. Which at all levels, like, are we, the board, accountable for the decisions we make for children? Is the cabinet, is every employee accountable? Just throwing it out there, not biasing you, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, because I agree with that word, and I want to also honor what Paula has written in the chat. Accountability, I feel like sometimes has become sort of this dirty word. So I guess there's like these educational words that people are like, oh, that means, whatever, structures that are just one type of test or one type of measure. So I think what would help with that one is really as it's teased out, and like, how are we using that word and what does that mean in the context of Jeffco could be a really helpful thing to do as we go forward, so that we're really clear with our community members, our staff members, et cetera, around what we mean when we say. It's similar to what you said about integrity, for example. And then Paula, did you want to talk about what you put in the chat?
So I was glad that Susan brought up integrity, because I just think that's critical. I think that's like the most important value in general. And I would want our students to, like, this is not just, these are not just the values that we want the employees to have, though we certainly want them, but we want the kids to have them too. And so I think that that's really important. I think excellence encompasses that idea of rigor and challenge. And again, that it works at both levels, that we're expecting our educators to be excellent educators and for our students to pursue excellence in what they do. And so I really like that. I know, Susan, that you talked about integrity, including diversity and listening to different voices. But I do think that one of the things that we're seeing is that the way that you get diversity and inclusion and those kinds of things is to be very explicit about them. And I do think that inclusion also covers diversity, because you're including all kinds of things, right? You're including different ability levels, that we're including students with disabilities, that we're including all of the different cultures, ethnicities, races, gender identities, like, just really making sure that all students feel that their gifts are going to be received and nurtured and cultivated. I think that's really important.
Tracy?
Thank you, Paula. I like inclusion as well. I think it's interesting that we're having this conversation around education language versus more community-wide language. And I think inclusion tends to be more of an education ease type of word, just generally, even though the meaning here would be different. There's like special ed connotations and other things surrounding that word. And I'd like to maybe propose a word that I think is very much related and means the same thing. But if I could channel like some of the leaders of color who I've talked to in our district, and I've spent a lot of time trying to listen and seek to understand about their experience. The word that they use often in terms of an interest that they really find valuable is belonging. And so I don't know if that's a word that that resonates with people, but it really is about belonging. And honestly, we all do belong to this community, and we all do belong to our schools, and we belong with one another and on the teams that we're part of. And so I might suggest belonging in place of inclusion, and see what people think about that.
Or you can have that the overarching umbrella for this value is you embrace diversity, or you value diversity, and the indicators include inclusion or a sense of belonging. Because diversity, when you talk about diversity, you're also talking about respect for diverse viewpoints, which is crucial in an educational institution.
Okay. Looks like Paula likes the word belonging. Thanks for that comment. The other thing I would say about integrity is I think it's essential. It's like one of my own personal core values. And I will also say that I do not like, it is a current value, and I do not like the definition of the current. I don't believe the definition that currently exists for integrity in Jeffco means integrity to me. So I just have to put that out there. And I don't know if others really like the current definition or.
Oh, I hate our current definition.
Wait, can you say that again, Tracy? I'm sorry.
So integrity, if you look at page 13 on your workbook handouts.
Yeah.
One of our values is currently integrity. So I think that's also nice to sort of reaffirm it if we decide that it needs to be a value moving forward. But I do not believe the definition here that is our current definition really means integrity.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Broader.
I think, and when Susan gave her definition of
Yes.
integrity, it's not this one. This one seems more for like the student center one than integrity. And I do want, like in the current value, you have exemplary performance. I actually prefer the way that Paula, you phrase it, like a district that is always striving for excellence. And although we do, so this notion of excellence, pursuit of excellence.
And then can I just say one more thing? I really think, I agree with Susan that integrity is assumed in transparency. And just given the current culture and history and some other things that are coming my way, I feel like transparency might be a really healthy thing to call out as a core value at this time in our district. And it's definitely a core value of my leadership. And if it doesn't end up being a district value, that's fine. I can still have it as a core value of what I do and how I do it. But I think it would mean a lot to many stakeholders in our community and in our district to have transparency be front and center.
So could I go backwards in the conversation a tiny bit? Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to synthesize what's happening in my head. So going back to belonging, which is I feel like there is a deep meaning in that word that resonates. And I agree that it is a more, yes. One of the challenges I'm having right now is figuring out that like there's no appearance of equity in any of the values that currently exist or that we've talked about so far, because I don't think belonging encompasses equity in a way that to me is truly what that would look like as a value in practice, right? So that like belonging is one thing, but equity impacts budgetary decision making and how we're thinking about our policies and how they're written. So, and I encourage you, like, please help me think this through in ways that maybe I'm not, but I don't see those things as being the same thing. So I personally would like to have some, I don't know if it's a value around equity or if it's a value around some other value that encompasses that, but I think it's different.
I would agree. I think it's also different. It can fall under the category of diversity, but I do like, for the same reason that you articulated, Stephanie, elevating equity, because in, like, when we make a decision, a school makes a decision to assign their strongest teachers with their most neediest student. That's equity there. So it could drive a lot of the decision. But Paula, you wanted to, Paula and then Susan.
So I think of values as something that, like I said earlier, that it is what we expect from ourselves and from our employees, but it's also what we expect from our students, that it is truly shared by the entire community. And so I think that there's a place for equity in that. I do wonder if there's another word that also takes that into account, like maybe fairness or something like that. But I'm okay with equity too. I think it's okay for kids to learn that. But the transparency thing to me is so district focused that I can absolutely see that being, like Tracy said, one of her values, you know, a leadership value. But for a district value, I think that it gets encompassed okay in integrity, because we're saying that idea that integrity is how you behave when no one's watching. You know, that if you have integrity, you don't mind being transparent because you have nothing to hide. But I do want to throw out there the idea that if these are district values, that they're not just for the adults, that they are for the kids, and that we are bonded together with these values.
Yeah, totally agree. These values should be applicable to everybody, the students, every employee in the organization. Susan?
So I bring this, I need to figure out how to lower my hand. Sorry. I bring this equity and belonging. A lot of school districts that I'm working with right now are challenged with this diversity, equity, and inclusion, because oftentimes it is wrapped in the politics of the day. And so equity for an IEP student is not necessarily bought into the DEI world. Equity for the GT kid is not bought into that world. Equity for other, classes, socioeconomics are not necessarily brought in. So I struggle with that term equity and how we want to make sure we are clear on what that means. So for me, when I think of equity, and I'm looking across the district, do all children in different articulation areas have the same learning opportunities regardless of where they go to school and or their zip code? That to me is an equity issue for me. And I know Stephanie and I've talked about it, and we have this equity amendment that was asked of us, and I just really want to make sure that however we go forward with that term, or whatever term we come with, it's all students have access to great learning regardless. And so that's where my cautiousness is, that I don't want to go too far one way or too far the other way. I want it to be centered on what the student needs and not necessarily what the adults in the rooms want it to be. I don't know how else to say it.
I think though you do tie this back to where we started, which is with students at the center of all decisions made at the district. And while you and I probably, I mean, I would not disagree, but probably have a different lens in terms of the importance of saying out loud like what equity means in this district and how it's applied then.
Yep.
I do think that one of the, if we're talking about value drivers, going back to that student-centered focus, it's each and every child
Shall have.
regardless
Right, I agree.
of what their needs may be different, and we will meet the needs where they are.
I agreed.
So I think we may be able to, and I don't, so my hesitation is still that there's still a sort of need for saying we make decisions at the district level based on a lens that looks at the needs of each community to ensure that they have what they need, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a clear tie to that student focused piece that resonates a lot with me as well.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, so
I
what
just
I,
want to focus on the children and not
Yeah.
necessarily on the adult focus.
what I heard was we keep equity, but then we have a very tight definition of what that means for this community. I think you all have heard me say that for me, as a person of color, the issue of equity here also applies to white middle-class students who are not performing to their fullest potential. And you have almost half of your population in that group that is not. So that's also an issue of like, are we providing them the learning experience that we want so they can be the best and achieve their dreams? So I think it would be very, particularly with equity, I would encourage you to, once you come with a definition, use the group that you mentioned to make sure this can be so divisive, but if you get it right, then it will guide the decisions that you need to make on behalf of students. Okay, I think we have enough, and we're at 7:25. I think we have enough to begin for Lisa and her team to build some of these values and put some of the indicators so that you can react to. But obviously, if at any point after, oh, I forgot about this one, feel free to email Lisa with, here's another one that maybe we should consider. So I'm going to end this part, and I want to really thank you. I didn't think it was going to be possible in 3 hours and in a virtual meeting to actually get our outcome, which was we got our vision statement, we have our mission, and we have our values. When I met with your board president early this week, I said, I'm going to be a taskmaster and we're going to get it done. So I feel like very productive that we got it done. And it also talks a lot about the team and about all of you as colleagues and as a unified board. I know you all have different perspectives, but it was so easy for all of you to coalesce around some principles. So thank you for this opportunity to be part of this journey. You guys used the word belonging. Ever since I started here back in August, I feel I belong to this community and I always look forward. So even though you don't have it described yet, it is a palpable value that I was able to elicit and would makes me want to continue coming. So thank you for the opportunity of being part of this journey. And now I'm going to turn it to Lisa, who's going to do the strategic plan timeline. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to share with you guys, and I'm sure we'll want to do a little bit more discussion over this, but this is the timeline we've put together so far. So This month, I have 3 categories: the board, then the cabinet internal, and then our community. So the big things to take away is obviously the work that we've been doing this month to get to our vision, mission, and values. And then the ends work is going to come in a little bit later in the meeting in March, and probably a little bit before as well. Our cabinet team is iterating on your board work on the profile of a thriving school. Kim's team is working on that. Our entire cabinet's going to be working on that as well towards a little bit later in the month. Every cabinet member is also shadowing a student next week. We have student engagement has matched each of us with a student, and we'll be following them around either for a day, a half a day, or a full day, and that will help inform the profile of a thriving school work that Kim's team is starting on. And then from the community perspective, I'm going to scroll down, but we are planning 2 phases of community engagement, and this kind of speaks a little bit to the work that you guys have been talking about going out to the community. And this is rough, but in April, and I'll work backwards from here, but in April, we'll do the first phase of community engagement around the Jeffco Thrives 2025 high level, your vision, mission, values, thriving school commitments, or profile of a thriving school, our priorities. And so those are the 4 areas, starting with our learners, our future, and then there's 3 others: our people, our strength, our counties, our communities, and then our operations, our foundation. Our teams are internally starting to build, or will be after we finish the Thriving Schools work, opportunity statement under each one of those areas, as well as the components. So, for example, our learners, our schools, one of the components might be around improving literacy, or early literacy, or secondary math, or graduation, things like that. And then under those components, there will be key action steps and outcomes, so that measurement piece. Again, that's sort of the high level, which is phase 1. And what we're planning for is, obviously we have internal groups that we need to take these things to, and then we're planning to create this committee of 100 that is representatives from other district committees. Public will be invited. We'll ask you guys to share with us people you want to have invited. And then we're also working on town halls for each of you to partner on. I'm working with Dan Cohan in the high school articulation areas to plan for those town hall meetings. And we're planning for 2 sets of community engagement. So this first one will be around the higher level draft, as I was referring to. And then in May and early June, we will be going into these what we call strategic management plans, which take the components and say, what are the targets we have? What are the action steps associated with those? What are the outcomes we're looking to drive in the year ahead? And what are we going to get done by the end of next year, 2022, 23, 24, 25? And then what are we aiming for 8 years, the 2030 mark? And that is what we will be working with our ERD team to feed into a dashboard for accountability purposes. So I wanted to skip so you kind of have an idea what we're talking about for community engagement. Again, I can take you guys through this individually when we have meetings coming up. In March, we will be doing a lot of the internal drafting. You guys are going to give a public update on this work that we're doing, given that I don't know how many people are tuning in tonight, probably not too many. So it'd be an opportunity for you guys to communicate that out. We will also, Kim's team will be bringing to you in your meeting next month the profile of a thriving school for you to hear about, give feedback on, iterating on the work that you did. And also Jaime has offered to do some facilitation training if anybody is interested in having some training on how to basically facilitate some meetings with the community. Although we will have facilitators for you, but if you would like that opportunity, we're happy to provide it. And then we will be doing a lot of drafting in March. We're planning a cabinet retreat as well to really flush out that high level piece of this of the Jeffco Thrives 2025, and our team will be doing our cabinet members will be going through some facilitation training as well, and we will be working to get the community engagement piece of this up and running, which I'm really excited. Glenna's going to be helping us to formulate that plan as well. Then in April, we will be getting feedback from you all on the pieces that we've been drafting. If you all want to do some student shadowing, we can talk about potentially arranging that for you in April, although I'm sure some of you have spent quite a bit of time in the classroom and don't necessarily, it's completely optional. Also, your board town halls would start in April. And then our team will be doing a second shadowing experience. We want to make sure we have a range. And then our teams will, in April, will really be working on those management plans. So getting down to those pieces of the strategic management plans, the brass tacks of what's going to actually happen. And then, as I said, we're going to do that phase 1 of community engagement. And then in May, we do the next phase of community engagement, and we start to also look at reporting and communication structures for how we're going to take this strategic plan and report back to not only you as a board, and hold ourselves accountable to the community. And by June, Stephanie and I haven't circled back, Stephanie, I'm late in doing this, but we were talking about having another board retreat in June to sort of start looking at this dashboard, and the next iterate, like having you do a final look at the full strategic plan, because we need to get ready. Our principals come back on July 6th, and we need to get ready for our rollout of the strategic plan in August. And we also talked about having a meeting prior to a board, potentially another board retreat in August at some point. So Stephanie and I will get together on more of what that would look like and bring that to you guys for where you'd like to spend your time. But that, and I will admit, I usually go to bed at 8:30, so 7:30 is not my best and brightest hour. But I'm happy. I know I have meetings with all of you coming up, and I'm happy to go through this more thoroughly. But hopefully this gives you a sense for both how people will be looking at the work that you guys are doing, giving us feedback, and we intend to take, we're going to evaluate that feedback and hopefully be able to incorporate some of it, and you'll have things to consider, I'm sure, related to your vision, mission, and values as well, related to the feedback that we get. And these meetings that we're going to have will be facilitated, and people, so that we can get the input we need to make revisions. And I'm over. Sorry, I'm over by 4 minutes, and I know we have to make a motion or something to go longer, but that's where we are.
Can I ask a question?
Is this a document that we could? Oh, I forgot I'm in the middle of you. Is this a document that we can just give to them as a draft in their weekly update?
Yeah,
I can. You guys can have time to review it in more depth.
I can include this for you guys in your update this week.
Lisa, can I ask you a question, please?
Any questions I can take now?
Okay. When you go back earlier in your,
but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? No?
I can hear you.
You guys hear? Maybe we can't hear you.
We can hear you. I can.
I'm gonna go off. Hold on. Maybe it's me.
Can we have a go now?
Yes.
Okay. So if you could go back a little bit where you said that you were having people follow children through the school and have them kind of navigate that. My one question would be, is it possible to also include schools that struggle getting substitute teachers, and having people from Denver West substitute at those schools over the next month or so when there's that ask? Because I honestly think that that would help us immensely truly understand the diversity of the needs of our schools And I do know that many schools struggle because of quote unquote, the students they serve. And so I think it's really important that our leadership not only walks with students through different schools, but potentially is in classrooms where there is great need to have an understanding of what those principals are asking for. And you're on mute, Jaime.
I think he's trying to mute so someone else can unmute and not have feedback. I'm just going to do an interpretive dance while we wait for this to happen.
Now,
There you
Okay,
go.
so Susan, thank you for bringing that up. We have many people who are doing that and have been doing that this year because we've had so many unfilled substitute positions, and it's a lot of executive directors, a lot of directors. I've subbed. I'm planning again, I think next week, to be subbing. I believe Renee and Dan and several community superintendents have been doing that work as well. And so we can definitely talk about that as a team and get others in to classrooms as well. So that's a great idea, and thank you, and know that some of that is happening.
And I appreciate that it is, but you're going to kindergarten classes, Tracy. And other people are going to other classes. And I know that you're going to maybe a menagerie of different classes. I just know from substitutes that have been going into schools, going into an 8th grade science class or English class at one school is different than going to a 1st grade class or a 5th grade class where people are prepared. Or I just think it's really critical that we understand where you all have gone so that we have context of, hey, we've touched all of these schools, because then it does give us, no, Tracy did do a language arts class at Jefferson High School.
Sure. I know next week they're sending me to a middle school, and you have 130-ish central people who I think have been covering, close to 300 jobs. So we have
and so I think it would help people know that that's what you've done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you haven't just been, because I know you haven't just gone to kindergarten, but when we went to South Lakewood, everybody was like, hi, Miss Gorman, and they were so excited to see you, and it was lovely. But I think it's important that people know where people have gone, so that there is an understanding of truly what you guys have been working on and where you've been.
so 2 comments on that. In the protocol that we developed for shadowing a student, there are some guiding principles, first in terms of which student to select that represent the entire continuum of students in the district, as well as visiting schools where students that represent the diversity of the district. But one thing that you reminded me, Susan, with your question is, and I think Lisa, you and I talked about that, you could also ask central office folks to also shadow a principal. And in shadowing a principal, they have to get there early, because then you will know what a principal has to go through when they have 10 teachers absent to do that, and what are the implications of those decisions, and follow the principal. I mean, we did that in one of our districts. That would also give you a very different perspective of the schools.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I do want to be on our time here. So I think there are some things, it sounds like, that we will be able to get a copy of some of that time frame and be able to then sort of reflect on it, think if there are ways in which, any of us have suggestions on how that can be richer than it is now, or if we're okay with the process the way it is. I promise we're not trying to death by retreat or anything to keep scheduling, but I do also want to say that I greatly appreciate everyone's all-in-ness in terms of going through this, what I think can sound like a very tedious process, but really is quite important, I think, to the greater good. So I don't know, Jaime, if this is an okay time, if we have more on the agenda, I just like to open and close in ways that honor people's time too.
I think that the superintendent has some closing comments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, board members. I feel really inspired by the conversations that we were able to have tonight.